right. All right. I'll go along with it. I'll have fun this week. Hello, everyone. As many of you have known, up till this point, I've been very harsh and very negative on Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. But maybe getting to talk about Shadowverse for a change put me in a good enough of a mood that I am willing to, for this season 1 finale review, I don't know how you count as a season finale when you start season 2 next week. For this episode, I will choose to be positive. Let's give the good aspects of this show their due. There aren't a lot of them, so we should appreciate the ones we have. First and foremost, it's lore time, people. Let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime lore. We don't get to do this much because, for those of you who know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore is a incoherent, borderline unfollowable soup mess that seems to only get more bizarre and convoluted as time goes by and more animes come out. So when there is a little something, I kind of like to connect the dots. And this little thing is quite literally how the universe started. Yeah, this episode opens with this weird godlike dude who we see later in the episode just creating the universe or creating dual energy to fuel the universe or something. It didn't feel particularly clear what was going on. But effectively, the idea was that dual magic was being created for the sake of the universe. Now, many of you may wonder, how does this fit in with other Yu-Gi-Oh! Explanations for the creation of the universe, which to my knowledge, there are two. And I'm just going to say it, I think this fits in fine. Like, this is kind of the advantage of Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore, and that is that everything about how the universe actually works is so vague and strange and mysterious and kind of like almost intentionally made to be like incomprehensible. Like, I never feel like anyone who has access to magic in this universe really quite has a control or a grasp on it, as they always end up being the victims of what that magic does, which I think is actually kind of a fun way to make the universe just feel big and unusual. And it's something that even in the cards, I really like how that always used to reflect. You look at like older Yu-Gi-Oh! Art, and everything just has this weird ethereal feel to it. Like, everything kind of feels a little bit darker when compared to what was coming out. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards felt darker when compared to like Pokemon or Digimon. And I think that's why I ultimately kind of wound up gravitating more into Yu-Gi-Oh! Than those other two franchises, despite being big fans of them. Like, to the point where even in the card game, like, everyone fell in love with the Fallen of Albaz Ecclesia storyline. And don't get me wrong, it's fun, like, to see it unfold. And it was cool seeing so many people who don't normally care about Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore. But getting a whole complete story like that isn't what I really like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore. I like when you don't really understand what something is, or you just feel like you have the vaguest concept of where it came from. Whereas here it just felt like just kind of an anime romance Romeo and Juliet thing that just had a happy ending. Again, don't dislike it. Don't dislike any of the attempts at this style of lore with the dual terminal stuff. Just kind of, I have my own preference. But so anyways, how does this actually implement the world of the anime, what we learned? And, well, when we look at, say, how Night Shroud or Darkness described the creation of the universe in GX, the way he describes it, there was light, there was darkness, they were on opposite ends of a card, hint, hint, because it's card game anime, and the collision of those two forces is what created everything. He just happened to be one of the rulers of the dark side of it. I think that's how that worked. I haven't watched GX Season 4 since the first time I watched it, because many of you don't know, GX sucks. But then we have in Zale, and yes, I say Zale, because that's how it was meant to be pronounced, shut up. We have this idea that the universe was started when the Numeron Code was created. This single card that led to the whole universe showing up, and it's Astral's mission to find the Numeron Code to destroy the Baryons. So the reason I think all these kind of work together is because, like I said, they're vague, they're simplistic. There's not like an overly detailed explanation going on here. It's just this very simplistic idea of the universe happened because of this thing. There's not a whole lot of detail there, and I think it allows for it to be reinterpreted. Like, maybe what Astral's people thought was the creation of the Numeron Code is what Darkness was experiencing. Light and darkness forcing together and creating this card-like structure. Or maybe Astral's people is correct and Darkness is wrong. These fun little ideas of how individual things become reinterpreted as cultures grow is such a fun, fascinating aspect of any good fictional world. And I feel like lately that's kind of been lost as everything feels the need to have a really complex, detailed lore that just everyone in the world knows all the time. And I kind of miss this idea of just the mystery of what a strange, unusual world like Yu-Gi-Oh can have to it. So to see it then get added onto again and have another interpretation of what the creation of the universe looked like, I think is a really cool idea. But anyways, we've talked about this long enough. We should get on to what actually happens in the episode. And is it a good, solid finale? It's okay. It's got some good parts. Let's talk about the good parts. So the thing I think is really interesting about this finale is the revelation of where the Valkyrians came from or what created them, and it is that this godlike creature who we saw at the beginning of the episode, who I guess just is God. Is Udius gonna duel God? Is this where this is going? But essentially, the Valkyrians were created to be in a endless war game for these other species, I guess is what's happening here. But essentially, the Valkyrians are sort of forced to die and come back over and over again. Does this mean that Udius has been like alive for like centuries and that he just gets his memories erased? Why did YGO get to remember this time? There's all these questions that, like I said, I just don't really want to think about right now. But effectively, YGO finds this out, and the idea is that that's what drove him insane. That's why he became evil. That's why he did all the fucked up shit he did. The big goal above all else was so that way he could break the cycle his people are stuck in and they could become full, just regular beings in the universe, not just someone's pawns or toys. This is a interesting idea on its own. I personally liked the idea that he was a extremist who was trying to make his people succeed in their militaristic style. I just found that conflict a little bit different and more refreshing. However, this does have its merits, and it's mostly held up by the fact that Zuijo's actor does a pretty good job of just showing off the idea of this anger as this sense of nihilism came up and consumed him. And I thought this was contrasted well in Udius, who, when Udius learns of everything, he doesn't falter. He doesn't give up his belief that we need peace, that we need to find a way to live together and to move on from the anger and the conflict. And I think like it is this very nice showing of nihilism as a concept. I feel like media has this tendency to depict nihilism as the just like pure negative misery. Like everyone who's a nihilist is just sad and unhappy that they don't feel they have any greater purpose or there's no greater design or God to like lead the way for them. But what we see in this instance is when Udius learns that this is what we are and we don't really have a greater purpose, he just kind of accepts it and still just stands with his conviction and his belief that we need to end this. We need to move on. We need to move forward. We need to strive our own path. And the way we do that isn't through anger and conflict. It's through understanding each other and being willing to actually make friends and move our society forward. That's something very nice. A lot of people who are nihilistic don't actually end up being miserable. That's how they think. They think in terms of, I may not have a purpose, so I'm just going to make one for myself. And I liked seeing that implemented in this show. How much of it was intentional, I don't know, but it was entertaining for me at least. And so then naturally, Udius wins the duel with a big new upgraded boss monster. Fuck it, it's fun. I don't super love the design because it's just that Konami thing, like post Odd Eyes, and I guess Utopia to a certain extent, where you just put a whole bunch more shit on something and call it an upgrade. But I don't really like Galactica Oblivion's design in the first place, so I guess it's fine. And then they win the duel, and we have, you know what? I did really like the scene where it's Udius and Zuijo in like a flower garden, and Zuijo once again that says that he hates this side of Udius that wants peace. And I like Udius's response of, but I still love you, or whatever he said. This idea that you and I may see opposite sides. You and I may be on opposite ends of this conflict, and I might not be able to agree with you and therefore must stand against you, but you are still important to me. You are family to me. You're the closest thing I have to a father. You really feel that in that moment when he says that no matter what happens, no matter how bad this gets, he will always love Zuijo, and that will not change. And the idea that Zuijo then recognizes this, finally acknowledges this, and that hits him really hard, that despite everything he's done, despite all the fucked up shit he wants to do, Udius will never give up his feelings for him. And that's what really like changes him over, is actually really nice. I don't know if I'm totally on board with the idea that now Zuijo is just going to be a good guy. And again, it was not earned properly, as Zuijo just came in and out, and there was way more things you could have done to make this feel more legitimate. Like I said, I'm trying to be nice and say that this was a okay finale to what is mostly a mediocre to not good show. But will they improve from here? I don't know. We'll find out. Give me your thoughts on this episode, this finale, and this season in the comments section below. And as for the TCG question of the week, OCG ban list came out. They brought back Blaster and they brought back Glow Up Bulb. My question to y'all is, are you okay with this? Because let's be real here, OCG ban list does influence the TCG one. So would you be okay with another E-Dragon coming off the list, or what is inarguably one of the most broken tuner monsters ever returning to the game? I think I trust Blaster more than Glow Up Bulb. I don't trust American Yu-Gi-Oh players. But yeah, give me your thoughts on that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me, I guess, next week, because this counts as being a season 2 now, I guess.